Today I want to talk about something a bit outside the mainstream in single player, like basically games that offer amazing quality but are not the shiny big names. Some indie and AA games that a lot of people miss but are really worth playing in my opinion. But yeah, some might be very niche, janky, clunky, or gritty, whatever. These are my personal picks that I enjoyed, but you might still like a few of them. Who knows? So let's get into it. Bramble the Mountain King is one of those games that looks cute for the first 10 minutes and then slowly shows you it is absolutely not playing around. It came out in 2023, made by a small Swedish studio called Dimfrost Studio, and it pulls heavily from dark Nordic folklore, not the Disney version, the old stories where bad things happen, kids disappear, and monsters don't feel sorry for you. You play as a young boy named Ale, searching for his sister after she gets taken into a strange forest world. That setup sounds simple, almost fairy tale-like, but the game quickly makes it clear that this world is cruel, unfair, and dangerous. Ale is small, weak, and completely out of place. That feeling never really goes away, and that's very much on purpose. Gameplay-wise, Bramble is a linear story game with light platforming, simple puzzles, stealth sections, and a few boss fights. You're not learning combos or builds, you're just trying to survive. Movement is basic, jumps are slow, and combat is limited. At first, that might feel stiff, but it actually fits the story. You're a kid. You're not meant to feel strong or smooth. What really makes Bramble stand out is how it uses scale and fear. Enemies are often huge compared to you. Bosses feel like forces of nature instead of enemies you can outplay. When you die, it usually feels like you messed up by being careless, not because the game cheated you. You're meant to move slowly, watch patterns, and stay scared. The world design is surprisingly detailed. Forests feel thick and alive. Swamps feel heavy and rotten. Caves feel tight and uncomfortable. The game uses lighting really well, especially shadows and darkness. Sometimes you're not scared because something jumps out, but because you know something is nearby and you can't see it yet. The monsters are straight out of old Scandinavian stories. Trolls, witches, spirits, and creatures that feel wrong just by looking at them. Some designs are honestly disturbing, not in a loud horror way, but in a quiet, this should not exist way. The game doesn't over-explain them either. They just are what they are, and that makes them feel more real. Storytelling in Bramble is mostly visual and environmental. There is some narration, but a lot of the story comes from what you see happening around you. The game trusts the player to connect the dots. It doesn't spell everything out, which is refreshing, especially compared to games that stop every 5 minutes to explain emotions. One thing Bramble does really well is tone control. It gives you calm moments, peaceful music, and beautiful scenery, then slowly twists it into something dark. It reminds you that fairy tales were never meant to be comforting, they were warnings. That contrast is what makes the darker moments hit harder. The music and sound design deserve credit too. The soundtrack is quiet and moody most of the time, letting nature sounds and silence do the work. When music does come in, it usually signals danger or emotional weight. Nothing feels random. Every sound feels placed on purpose. This game came out during a time when a lot of indie and AA studios were making short, focused story games, and Bramble fits that era perfectly. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It knows what story it wants to tell and sticks to it. The whole experience is tight, controlled, and clearly made with care, even if the gameplay itself is not deep or complex. Bramble isn't for people looking for freedom, choices, or replay value. It's a straight path from start to finish. But if you care about atmosphere, dark storytelling, and games that feel uncomfortable in a meaningful way, this one hits hard. It's not scary because it screams at you. It's scary because it reminds you how small you are in a world that doesn't care. Evil West is unique and, well, it mixes up cowboys with vampires in a really fun way. You play as a guy named Jesse Rentier, and he is a vampire hunter who works for a secret group that protects the Wild West from monsters. The story is pretty simple, but it is very exciting because you just go from one place to another fighting bad guys and saving the world. The gameplay is awesome. The best part about this game is the fighting. You have a big metal glove called a gauntlet that shoots electricity. You can punch vampires right in the face and watch them fly across the room. It feels really powerful when you hit them. You also have a bunch of guns, like a revolver and a rifle and a shotgun. You can mix up shooting and punching to make cool combos. There is even a flamethrower you can use to burn the monsters. One really fun thing you can do is pull enemies towards you with your electric glove and then uppercut them into the air. Then you can shoot them while they are floating. It makes you feel like a superhero. The game is not an open world where you have to walk around for hours looking for stuff. It is a straight line where you just move forward and fight, which is actually really nice because you never get lost. Why it is fun to play. The graphics look great and the monsters are very scary and gross. Some of them are huge bats and some are ugly vampire monsters that scream at you. The game has a lot of gore, so it is very messy when you win a fight. You can upgrade your weapons and your glove to get stronger as you play. For example, you can make your punches electric so they shock everyone nearby. You can also play this game with a friend. It has a co-op mode where two people can fight the vampires together. This makes the game even more chaotic and fun because you can help each other out when there are too many enemies. It feels like an old school video game from back in the day where fun was the most important thing. If you like action movies and cowboys and monsters, then you will love playing Evil West. A Plague Tale Requiem is not trying to be fun in the normal way. It is a heavy story game that follows two siblings, Amicia and Hugo, in a medieval world that feels sick and cruel. This is a sequel, and it assumes you already know these characters, which makes everything hit harder. Hugo is not just a kid with problems, he is the reason entire cities collapse. The rats are not a monster you fight once, they're a curse that follows him everywhere. Wherever these two go, things slowly fall apart. What makes this game different is how personal it feels. You are not saving the world, you are trying to delay the worst outcome for as long as possible. Amicia is tired, angry, scared, and slowly losing herself as the game goes on. You can hear it in her voice, see it in how violent she becomes. The game does not pretend she's a hero. It shows what happens when a normal person is pushed too far and has no good choices left.
What's happening to me, Lucas?
The gameplay is built around being weak and outnumbered. You do not run in and fight groups head-on. You hide, you plan, and you use tools to control space. Light matters because rats fear it. Fire matters because it is the only thing that keeps death away. Your sling is not a power fantasy weapon. It is a desperate tool. You craft ammo, break armor, blind enemies, and sometimes you just run because that is all you can do. Combat feels messy and stressful on purpose, which fits the story. One of the most impressive things is how the rats work. They are not just a visual effect. They move like a living ocean, reacting to sound, light, and fire in real time. Entire areas become puzzles, built around managing darkness and safety. You are constantly thinking about where you can stand without dying. It creates tension without needing jump scares or cheap tricks. The world itself is grounded in a twisted version of real history. The plague, religious fear, and blind faith all play a role. People see Hugo as a miracle or a demon depending on what they need to believe. Towns feel desperate, soldiers feel cruel, and nobody feels clean or safe. The game takes its time showing quiet moments too, which makes the violent parts hit harder. Requiem stands out because it commits fully to its tone. It is slow, uncomfortable, and emotional, and it never backs away from that. The voice acting is raw, the animation sells every breakdown, and the ending does not try to make you feel good. If you care about strong characters, serious storytelling, and a game that treats its story with respect, this is one of the best recent AA story games out there.
Stay close to the wall. I'm asleep.
I'm sorry for everything. Kill that girl!
Blueprints, because it is the kind of game that completely takes over your brain. It's not a secret anymore. This thing came out from solo developer Tonda Ross, working under the studio Dogu Bomb after a crazy 8-year development, and it immediately became one of the most talked about indie puzzle games of the year. If you like games that force you to take notes, draw maps, and think like a detective, this is your jam. The whole premise is that you, playing as Simon P. Jones, have been willed a mysterious mansion called Mount Holly Estate by your great-uncle uncle, Herbert S. Sinclair. But there's a huge catch. You only get the inheritance if you can locate the elusive Room 46. The house is built on a sort of impossible architecture that shifts constantly, and this is where the genius of the game lies, borrowing ideas from tabletop drafting games and classic puzzle books. This game is a roguelite, which means you're going through constant runs, but every run is actually called a day. You start each day in the entrance hall with a few resources and a certain number of steps, literally how many rooms you can enter before you have to call it a night and reset. When you open a door, you're given a choice of up to 3 blueprints, and each blueprint is a different room you can add to the mansion's current layout. The map is blank until you draft it. This isn't random generation in the normal sense. The rooms themselves are hand designed, but you decide the order and connection of the map every single time.
A world of dreams.
What you're really doing is managing a limited number of resources and prioritizing what you need. You might need to draft a puzzle room to solve a lock, or a resource room to gain more gems or energy to keep your run going, or perhaps a room with an important clue about the mansion's unsettling history. What you learn on one run, like a safe code hidden in a specific room's description, you keep forever, and that permanent knowledge is what allows you to make deeper progress in future runs. It is that perfect blend of frustrating short-term failure and satisfying long-term progression that defines the best roguelites. The atmosphere is incredible too. It's a first-person experience where you are alone in this huge, silent, eerie place, and the focus is entirely on the environment and the text clues left behind. The story involves the disappearance of a local children's book author, political intrigue, and deep family secrets, and the only way to unravel it is to pay attention to every single detail in every single room you draft. The fact that the entire house is literally built by your decisions makes it one of the most unique and highly rated indie games in a long time. It's a game that respects your intelligence, and if you're up for a complex mystery, this is easily one of the best out there.
From the 46th room of my 45-room estate.
Kena, Bridge of Spirits. You have to listen to me about this game because it is honestly one of the most beautiful things I have ever seen on a screen. It is called Kena, Bridge of Spirits, and it looks exactly like a Pixar movie that you can actually control. You play as a girl named Kena, and she is a spirit guide, which means she helps ghosts who are stuck in the world move on to the afterlife. It is a little bit sad, but mostly it is just really sweet and exciting. The whole game takes place in this big abandoned village that is surrounded by a forest. Something bad happened there a long time ago, and now the whole place is covered in this gross red and black corruption. Kena has to go to different parts of the forest to find spirits who are lost. These spirits are usually people who have a lot of guilt or anger, and they turned into big scary monsters because they could not let go of their past. You have to learn about their lives and what happened to them so you can help them find peace. It's a really good story about helping people and fixing mistakes.
It's okay. You have to go now.
Okay, so the absolute best part of this game is these little black fuzzy creatures called the Rot. They are these tiny round monsters with big eyes, and they are so cute that you will want to scream. You start with just a few of them, but as you play, you find more and more hiding under rocks and inside chests until you have a whole army of them following you around. You can even find little hats for them to wear, like mushroom caps or fox masks, or even little pancakes. It is adorable. But the Rot are not just for looking cute because they actually help you do everything. When you're walking around, they can pick up heavy statues for you or move blocks so you can climb up cliffs. They're like your little helpers, and they chirp and make funny noises the whole time. You might think this game is easy because it looks like a cartoon, but the fighting is actually pretty tough. Kena has a big wooden staff that she uses to whack enemies. You can do light hits and heavy hits, and you also have a blue bubble shield to block attacks. Later on, you get really cool powers like turning your staff into a magic bow and arrow, or using it to throw spirit bombs that blow up the bad guys. The Rot help you fight too. You can tell them to swarm a monster to distract it so you can hit it from behind. You can also use them to make make a giant spirit hammer or a super powerful arrow. The boss fights are really intense, and you have to be fast and smart to win. It feels so good when you finally beat a huge boss and turn them back into a peaceful spirit. You need to play this game because it just feels good to be in that world. The music is amazing and sounds like something from a movie. The forest is bright and green, and when you clear the corruption, everything turns beautiful again. It's a mix of exploring and solving puzzles and fighting monsters. If you like games like Zelda or just like watching animated movies, then Kena Bridge of Spirits is perfect for you.
This land can be weird, but you cannot stay here, Spirit.
Sifu came out at a time when a lot of action games were getting easier, safer, and more forgiving, and this game did the exact opposite. It was made by Slowclap, the same studio that made Absolver, and you can tell this is a team obsessed with hand-to-hand combat. They are not trying to impress you with size or flashy set pieces, they are focused on feel, timing, and mastery. Sifu is built around the idea that getting good is the whole point. The story is simple on the surface. You are a martial artist going after 5 targets who destroyed your school and killed your family. There's no open world, no side quests, no filler. Each level represents a step in that revenge path, and each boss represents a different fighting philosophy. The game does not dump lore on you. It lets the environment, the dialogue, and the bosses do the talking. As you replay levels, you slowly realize this story is not just about revenge, it is about obsession and whether holding on to anger is actually worth the cost. The aging system is the core idea that makes Sifu stand out. Every death pushes your character forward in age. You get stronger but more fragile, which is a smart trade-off. It means brute forcing fights will only take you so far. You start caring about clean runs, not just survival. By the time you reach your 30s or 40s in a level, you feel the pressure. One bad room can end an entire run. That tension never goes away, even when you get better. Combat is where Sifu separates itself from almost everything else. This is not a button masher, and it is not trying to be cinematic. You are constantly managing structure, spacing, and enemy behavior. Dodging at the right angle matters more than mashing block. Enemies do not politely take turns, and group fights are where most players hit a wall. You are forced to control crowds, use the environment, and stay aware of everything happening around you. When the system clicks, fights flow in a way that feels smooth and controlled, almost like choreography. The level design supports this idea of mastery. You replay the same stages many times, but they never feel boring because you are the one changing, not the level. Shortcuts unlock, routes become faster, and rooms that once destroyed you turn into clean, efficient runs. The game respects repetition and assumes you are willing to learn, which is rare now. Visually, Sifu goes for a stylized look that ages well. It does not chase realism. The lighting, colors, and animations are clean and intentional. The martial arts animations are especially strong. You can tell Slowclap studied real movement. Hits feel grounded, not floaty, and enemy reactions sell every punch. Sifu fits into this modern wave of smaller studios making tight, focused games instead of bloated ones. It doesn't waste your time, but it demands your attention. By the end, the game feels less like something you beat and more like something you trained for. If you care about skill-based combat, clean design, and games that trust the player to improve, Sifu is one of the best examples of that philosophy in recent years. Robocop Rogue City. This game is pure fan service done right, and it's the best adaptation of the original movie vibe that anyone could have asked for. It comes from Teon, the same developers who did the Terminator Resistance game, and they had this amazing knack for taking classic 80s action movies and translating their specific, gritty, ultra-violent atmosphere perfectly into a modern first-person shooter. The story is set between the second and third Robocop movies, so it feels like a genuine lost chapter of the original trilogy. You are, obviously, Alex Murphy, the legendary cyborg lawman, and the game throws you right back into the crime-ridden streets of old Detroit. The big threat this time is a mysterious new crime lord, known only as the New Guy, who's trying to unite the city's gangs. The plot deals with all the classic Robocop themes: Murphy's slowly returning humanity, the corporate greed of omni-consumer products, OCP, and the sheer satirical absurdity of late 80s action media.
Freaking right!
Every gang in the city's out for payback.
You got the money. We've got the power.
What makes this game so damn satisfying is the gameplay. This is not a fast, twitchy shooter. You are playing as a 600-pound walking tank, and the game makes you feel that weight and power. Robocop moves slowly, deliberately, and with an unstoppable momentum. When you draw your iconic Auto 9 pistol, it feels incredibly powerful and precise. You don't take cover, you are the cover. You can walk through walls, kick thugs across the room, and even use your environment, like grabbing a filing cabinet or an explosive barrel and throwing it right through a gang of enemies. It is supremely brutal and incredibly fun. The level design is fantastic because it's not all just shooting. You get to engage in detective work too. As Robocop, you have to investigate crime scenes using your internal vision modes, gather evidence, and talk to witnesses and victims. This is where the light RPG elements come in. You gain experience and spend skill points on things like deduction to solve cases faster, combat to increase your damage, or even psychology to navigate the complex, often darkly funny dialogue choices. Your choices matter too. How you interact with the public and how you handle certain situations actually affects your reputation and your standing as a cop, which impacts the ending. It's a perfect blend of slow burn detective work, crunchy, heavy combat, and genuinely faithful storytelling that captures the exact tone of the first two films. Hi-Fi Rush is one of those games that shouldn't exist the way it does, and that's part of what makes it so interesting. It released back in January 2023 on Xbox and PC, and later came to PlayStation in March 2024, but people are still talking about it because it's one of those rare games that actually mixes two things you don't usually see together, rhythm and action combat, and makes both feel meaningful, not just gimmicky. The game was made by Tango Gameworks, the same folks who made The Evil Within and Ghostwire Tokyo. Those games were always about tension, horror, or big environments with weird enemies. Hi-Fi Rush feels like they threw that whole vibe out the window and decided to make something lighter, louder, and just plain fun. Honestly, it feels like the team just said, what if we made a game that feels like a music video and a beat-em-up had a baby, and then actually pulled it off? You play as Chai, who starts off as this goofy, up-and-coming rock musician who just can't catch a break. He gets pulled into this corporate experiment where a music player gets physically fused to his chest, like it becomes part of him, and suddenly the whole world around him starts moving to the beat of that music. That is the entire gag of the game, and it works because the combat, enemy movement, hazards, and almost everything in the world actually sync up with your soundtrack. If you time your hits to the rhythm, things feel good. If you don't, attacks still land, but it doesn't feel as satisfying. It's weirdly intuitive once you get into the flow. Mechanically, it's a third-person combat game, but rhythm isn't some tiny side thing. It's woven into how you win fights. Enemies move and attack on beat, so once you start noticing the rhythm patterns, the combat feels almost like playing a beat-matching game and a fighting game at the same time. You get combos, special moves, and finishers that hit harder when you're on time. That encourages you to listen to the music instead of just ignoring it while button mashing. You unlock new gear, new musical tracks, and new abilities that change how fights feel over time, so it doesn't just stay the same from start to finish. The characters you meet are a big part of why people remember this game. Chai gathers this odd crew of allies. Each one has their own personality and weird little animations that make you smile. That's something Tango has always been good at, giving characters real flavor without trying to be too deep. It's not about drama or tragedy. It's about a ragtag band of misfits figuring things out and having fun doing it. And the story is playful. It's not some long epic with million-dollar cutscenes. It's loose and funny, poking fun at corporate culture, at hero tropes, and at itself. The humor is light without being stupid, and that tone carries through the whole adventure.
We'll take down this company, one boss at a time.
There's also a weird history behind the game's existence that makes it even cooler. When Hi-Fi Rush launched, it got great reactions from players and critics, but pretty soon after, Microsoft announced Tango was being shut down. That freaked people out, because this game was one of the few recent action titles that felt fresh. Then, Krafton bought the studio and the Hi-Fi Rush rights, basically saving the team and keeping the game alive. That means the weird, joyful thing you play now exists because of a real drama behind the scenes, not just corporate press releases. If you think rhythm games have to be arrow prompts and strict timing bars, Hi-Fi Rush will change that idea. If you think action games have to be serious or gritty, this one flips that expectation too. It's goofy, smart, loud, and honestly just a blast to play even if you've never loved rhythm games before. The Alters is one of those survival games that feels weird but in a good way. Like someone took your normal base builder formula, added sci-fi weirdness, and then asked the question, what if your own alternate selves had to help you stay alive? And actually committed to it. It came out on June 13th, 2025 for PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC, and was developed by 11-bit studios, the same people behind This War of Mine and Frostpunk. So you already know they like mixing survival mechanics with deeper emotional and philosophical ideas. You play as Jan Dulski, a miner and engineer whose expedition crashes on a harsh alien world where the sun's radiation will kill you if you don't keep moving and protect it. On the surface, it sounds like a typical survival loop. Gather resources, build and expand your base, manage food and parts, but the twist is that you can create versions of yourself called alters using this strange element called rapidium. These aren't just robot helpers or generic clones. Each alter represents a different path Jan's life could have taken, shaped by choices he actually might have made in another universe, and each one comes with its own personality, skills, fears, and emotional weight. The first time you see it in action, it's kind of unsettling in a cool way. You're literally facing different versions of Jan who disagree with each other, get scared, or have opinions about what you should do next. That makes the whole survival loop feel alive instead of just numbers on a screen. Some may be great engineers, others great at mining or building, and others good at research. You're constantly juggling resources and deciding who to create, who to send where, and who's emotionally stable enough to handle another day in the wheel of this rolling base. Speaking of your base, it's not a small hut. It's this giant circular rolling structure you have to keep moving across the planet's surface so you're not burned by the deadly sun. You mine resources, craft modules like research labs or social rooms, and expand the base piece by piece. But time is the most precious resource because the sun keeps rising and you need to be prepared before it does. That pressure of literally racing against time gives the game a constant low-key tension you don't see in many other survival games. This isn't just about numbers either. The Alters tries to make you think about choices and what they mean. Each alter you bring to life feels like a real person with emotional needs and opinions, so you have to balance their moods and relationships just to keep them doing their jobs. There's a branching narrative tied to all this. The decisions you make, who you create, who you help or ignore, and the paths you choose lead to different endings instead of just one. The gameplay loop has a lot going on. You'll explore outside for resources while managing hunger, radiation protection, and base upkeep, but you're also keeping track of who's broken down emotionally, who needs support, and which alters are going to help you unlock upgrades. It's a weird mix of survival, base building, personality drama, and even moral reflection on identity and life choices. Not something you see every day.
Still making it about yourself. Just look at us.
Have you been ready?
Eric Sholm, The Stolen Dream. Eric Sholm, The Stolen Dream is a 2025 story-driven stealth adventure that feels like a grown-up indie tale with some old-school vibes wrapped around clever stealth and puzzle play. It was made by River End Games, a small Swedish studio with veterans from big projects like Battlefield, Little Nightmares, Mirror's Edge, and Unravel, which is wild when you think about it, because this game blends cinematic storytelling with tight, thoughtful stealth design in a way that you don't see a ton these days. The game dropped on July 15th, 2025 for PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC, and it's one of those titles that quietly built hype through demos and trailers before people even knew how good it really was. You play mostly in an isometric view, which means you're seeing everything from a kind of top-down angle that lets you look at guards, pathways, and puzzles in the world like you're scoping out a tabletop map, except it's not cute or simplistic. It's detailed, moody, and a bit gritty. The story starts super personal and grounded. You're introduced to Hana, a young orphan in the city of Eriksholm, whose brother Herman disappears after things go sideways with something he did. The city's already in decline because of a plague called heartpox, and that backdrop gives the whole narrative this industrial-era fear mixed with desperation feel. It's not about saving a kingdom, it's about pulling yourself and the people you care about out of a mess that's bigger than you.
You and your brother. You said you're done with this, it's too dangerous, not what you wanted.
That's actually why I'm here.
Gameplay is rooted in stealth and strategy, but it's not just hide forever stealth. You're constantly moving through levels where guards patrol, paths wind, and every corner could have a secret or a danger. If someone spots you, it resets you to just before detection, so it rewards patience and pattern reading more than just brute force. You don't have guns or magic, you use shadows, timing, and your wits. That sense of tension actually makes encounters matter, even if the game isn't trying to be super hardcore. Pretty early on, the game expands the cast. After playing as Hana for a while, you unlock two more characters, Alva and Sebastian, and each of them brings a new way of moving and solving problems. Hana can squeeze through vents, Alva climbs drain pipes, and Sebastian can swim. Once all three are unlocked, you can switch between them on the fly to solve objectives in different ways, which feels smart because it opens up multiple paths through the same level. It stops the stealth from feeling linear and puts a bit more strategy back in your hands. The city of Eriksholm itself is inspired by early 20th century Scandinavian architecture. Think Nordic streets, industrial neighborhoods, cramped residential areas, and that setting really becomes a character in its own right. The visuals are crisp, the lighting and details pop thanks to Unreal Engine 5, and there's a real sense of place, even if the levels are on rails compared to some big open worlds. Wakes the deep. If you have an appreciation for games that build tension through atmosphere and environment rather than constant shooting, this is a game from the Chinese room. And if you know their work, you know they are the masters of narrative-focused games that lean heavily into atmosphere, like Dear Esther and Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. This time, they're tackling pure claustrophobic survival horror, and it's a total head trip. The game is set in 1975, and you play as a guy named Kaz McLeary, who is working as an electrician on a giant, remote, and increasingly unstable oil rig called the Beira D. The setting alone is terrifying. You are miles out in the North Sea, surrounded by freezing black water, completely cut off from the mainland. Then, things go catastrophically wrong. The rig is hit by some kind of impossible, non-Euclidean horror, a creature or an influence that comes from the deep ocean and starts twisting the steel structure and the sanity of the crew. The unique terror of this game is that you have absolutely no way to fight back. This is not a combat game. Your only options are to survive, run, hide, and observe the terrifying collapse of your world. You spend the entire game navigating the labyrinthian, tight, and twisting corridors of the oil rig. You're crawling through maintenance ducts, shimmying along narrow catwalks suspended over the crashing waves, and swimming through flooded sections where the oxygen is running out. The environment itself is your enemy just as much as whatever monstrous thing is stalking the halls. The brilliance of the Chinese room's approach is how human and raw the story is. Kaz is just a regular guy, not some super soldier, and he's dealing with immense stress and fear. The voice acting is outstanding, delivered in strong Scottish and regional accents, which grounds the whole terrifying experience in a very real, relatable crew dynamic. You are constantly hearing the shouts and screams of your crewmates over the crackling radio, and you see the horrible things happening to them, but you can do nothing but try to save yourself and perhaps a few others. If you love games that use sound design, tight spaces, and a deep, character-driven story to generate genuine, paralyzing fear, then Still Wakes the Deep is a perfect example of modern, high-quality psychological horror. Pentiment is a very different kind of game, and it comes from Obsidian, a studio that has been around forever and is known for deep writing and choice-driven games. Instead of going big and cinematic, they went small, slow, and very focused. This game is set in 16th century Bavaria, during a time when religion, class, and power controlled every part of life. You play as Andreas Mahler, an artist working on manuscripts. Not a warrior, not a hero, just a smart guy who knows how to read, write, and observe people. What makes Pentiment stand out right away is the art style. The whole game looks like a living medieval manuscript. Text appears as if it is being handwritten in real time, characters look like drawings from old books, and the world feels like history come to life. This is not just a style choice, it fits the game perfectly. You feel like you are inside a history book, watching real people deal with real problems. The game is built around mystery and choice. Murders happen, secrets come out, and you are constantly asked to decide who to trust and what version of the truth you believe. The key thing is that you are never given perfect answers. Evidence can be incomplete, witnesses can lie or be wrong, time moves forward no matter what you do, and some choices lock you out of others. You cannot see everything in one playthrough, and the game is very honest about that. There is no combat at all. Everything is handled through dialogue, investigation, and decision-making. Who Andreas is depends on how you shape him. His background, education, and interests affect how he talks to people and what options you get. Being kind or aggressive, curious or dismissive, all of it changes how characters react to you over the years. And yes, years matter here. The game spans decades, and you see characters age, change, regret things, and carry old wounds. What Pentiment does really well is show how class and power work. Peasants, monks, nobles, and outsiders all live in the same town, but they live very different lives. The game never lectures you, it just shows how unfair things are and lets you sit with it. Some choices feel wrong no matter what you do, and the game does not try to comfort you. Pentiment came out in an era where most games chase action and speed, so this feels almost rebellious. It trusts the player to slow down, read, and think. The writing is sharp, the characters feel human, and the consequences stick. This is not a game you play for thrills. You play it because you want something thoughtful and mature. If you are tired of bloated open worlds and endless combat, Pentiment feels like a breath of fresh air. It proves that a game can be quiet, smart, and deeply engaging without explosions or boss fights. It is one of the most unique AA games of recent years, and nothing else really feels like it. Goodnight Universe is part of this newer wave of indie games that aren't trying to win you over with combat systems or big mechanics, but with perspective. It comes from Nice Dream, the same small team that made Before Your Eyes, and if you know that game, you already know what kind of space they operate in. They're not interested in power fantasies. They're interested in memory, family, identity, and how games can make you feel present in a moment instead of just watching it play out. You play as Isaac, a baby. Not a funny baby, not a cartoon baby, but an actual infant who can't talk, can't walk, and barely understands the world. That alone already sounds like a bad idea on paper, but the twist is that Isaac starts developing telekinetic and psychic abilities. The game is told entirely from his point of view, so everything feels low to the ground, oversized, confusing, and intimate in a way most games never even try. The story isn't about saving the world. It's about family. Isaac's parents are flawed, stressed, tired people. His older sister feels real, not written like a sitcom character. There's love in the house, but also tension, arguments, fear, and misunderstanding. On top of that, there's a tech company that becomes interested in Isaac's abilities, and that's where the game starts mixing personal family drama with something darker and more uncomfortable. It's not subtle in a fake way, but it also doesn't scream its themes at you.
Not even playing with my powers. Not even looking at Gilbert.
What really makes Goodnight Universe stand out is how you interact with it. Like Before Your Eyes, the game uses camera and face tracking if you want. Your eyes, your head movements, even your expressions can control things. You look at objects to move them. You focus your gaze to activate powers. Sometimes just looking at something for too long changes what happens. And the important part is that this isn't just a gimmick slapped on top. It actually fits the idea of being a baby, where your main way of interacting with the world is attention, not action. You're not pressing buttons to swing swords. You're paying attention. attention. You're observing, you're reacting, and that changes how the pacing feels. The game forces you to slow down. If you try to rush it, it doesn't really work. It's designed around moments, not systems. From a design point of view, this is very much a narrative-first game, but it's smarter than most walking simulators. There are puzzles, light exploration, and moments where your powers grow and change how you interact with rooms and people. It never turns into an action game, and it doesn't want to. The tension comes from emotional stakes, not enemies.
When they walk in that door, you're not going to yell. When they walk in that door, I am not going to yell. You need to explain yourself to me right goddamn now!
Visually, the game keeps things grounded. It's not flashy. The environments feel lived in. Messy rooms, toys on the floor, dim lighting at night, quiet moments where nothing happens except breathing and background noise. Sound design does a lot of heavy lifting here. You hear muffled voices, distant arguments, household sounds, and it all adds to that feeling of being small in a big world you don't fully understand yet. What's interesting is how this game fits into the current indie scene. We're seeing more studios explore perspective-based storytelling, where the mechanics exist mainly to reinforce how the story feels. Goodnight Universe sits right alongside games like Pentiment or The Altars in that sense. Very different genres, but the same mindset. Use the medium properly. Do something that only games can do. Reception-wise, people who bounce off slow narrative games probably won't love this, and that's fine. This isn't trying to convert action fans, but for players who enjoy story-driven experiences that trust the audience to sit with uncomfortable emotions, Goodnight Universe lands hard. A lot of players talk about finishing it and just sitting there for a bit, not because of shock value, but because it feels personal in a quiet way. At the end of the day, Goodnight Universe isn't here to impress you, it's here to connect with you. It's one of those games where the mechanics disappear after a while and you're just inside the experience. No big set pieces, no forced drama, just a strange, intimate story told from a perspective games almost never use, made by a studio that clearly understands why interactivity matters.
They will take care of you.
What the hell?
And then, when you're ready, they will get you home.
Tunic on the surface looks like a cute little adventure game with a fox and a sword, almost like an old school Zelda throwback. That is exactly why it catches people off guard. This game slowly reveals itself to be a proper Souls-like, just hidden under a soft art style and a ton of clever design tricks. Tunic was made by a very small team, led mainly by Andrew Schuldeis, and it took years to come together. You can feel that long development time and how carefully everything is placed. This came out during a time when indie devs were getting really experimental, not just with gameplay, but how information is given to the player. Tunic is a perfect example of that mindset. Combat is simple, but dangerous. You have stamina, dodges, shields, and precise timing. Enemies hit harder than you expect, and early on, the game does not explain much at all. You die fast if you get careless. Boss fights especially lean into Souls-style pressure, forcing you to learn attack patterns and manage stamina instead of just swinging wildly. What makes Tunic truly special is how it handles knowledge. The game gives you pages of an in-game manual, written in a made-up language that you cannot fully read. At first, these pages feel useless. Over time, you realize they are everything. Combat tips, secrets, mechanics, shortcuts, even core systems are hidden inside that manual. Progress is not just about getting stronger, it is about understanding the game itself. Exploration is layered and clever. Areas loop back on themselves, shortcuts unlock in smart ways, and secrets are everywhere. Some of the biggest discoveries in Tunic are not items or upgrades, but moments where you suddenly understand something that was there the whole time. That feeling hits harder than any stat boost. The atmosphere is quiet and mysterious. Music is subtle, the world feels ancient and abandoned, and there's a constant sense that you are missing something important. That feeling is intentional. Tunic wants you to feel confused, lost, and curious, and it rewards players who pay attention and think things through. What really separates Tunic from other Souls-likes is how it blends challenge with discovery. It's not just testing your reflexes, it's testing your awareness. The game trusts the player in a way most modern games do not. It doesn't point arrows or spell things out. It lets you fail, learn, and slowly piece everything together. Tunic is not loud or flashy, and it doesn't rely on shock value. It's calm, smart, and quietly brutal. Beneath the cute fox and soft colors is a deeply serious game that understands what makes Souls-like design work. It's one of the best examples of how far the genre can stretch while still feeling true to its roots. Desperados 3. It is the absolute peak of the real-time tactics genre. You are trading shurikens for revolvers and samurai swords for bear traps, but the core DNA is the same high-stakes puzzle solving that makes your brain hurt in a good way. The gameplay loop is identical to Shadow Tactics, but refined to a mirror shine. You control a squad of 5 misfits in the Wild West, and you have to navigate massive maps filled with guards who have the vision of eagles and the patience of saints. The stealth here is precise. You are constantly managing view cones, checking noise levels, and timing your movements down to the millisecond. If a guard sees footprints in the mud, he investigates. If a guard notices his buddy is missing from his post, he gets suspicious. It forces you to clean up your mess. You can't just kill everyone and leave a pile of bodies like you're playing Hitman on easy mode. You have to hide them in bushes, dump them in wells, or feed them to hogs. The characters are the best part. John Cooper is your standard cowboy with a throwing knife and the ability to shoot 2 people at once, which is cool, but he's the least interesting one compared to the freaks he hangs out with. You have Hector, who is just a large man with a giant bear trap he named Bianca. He is my favorite because he can whistle to lure guards into the trap, and then he just laughs. It is simple, honest work. Then you have Doc McCoy, who is a sniper and can throw his bag down as a distraction. When guards open it, it releases gas and knocks them out. It's hilarious every single time. But the real game changer is Isabel. She introduces voodoo magic into a cowboy game, and it completely breaks the reality of the situation. She can link 2 enemies together so that whatever happens to one happens to the other. If you stab one guy, the other guy 50 feet away just drops dead. It opens up so many possibilities for clearing rooms. You can link a guard to a chicken and then kill the chicken. It's brutal, it's weird, and it is incredibly fun to experiment with. She can also mind control guards to make them do your dirty work, which feels like cheating, but in the best way. The showdown mode is the glue that holds it all together. You can pause time completely, issue commands to every character, and then unpause to watch the chaos unfold. It turns the game into a choreographed ballet of violence. You have Cooper throwing a knife, McCoy sniping a guy in a tower, and Hector shotgunning 3 people at once, all happening in perfect sync. When it works, you feel like a genius. When it fails, and it will fail, you just hit that quick load button. The game reminds you to save constantly. It knows you are going to screw up. It wants you to experiment and fail so you can learn the systems. The level design is spectacular. The maps are huge and full of environmental kills. You can drop church bells on people, push rocks onto them, or rig a dynamited wall to explode. The train level is a standout where the environment is moving and you have to work around the geometry of the train cars. The banter between the characters is also surprisingly good. They actually feel like a team that grows to respect each other, not just a random assortment of units. It is a difficult game. It will kick your teeth in if you try to rush, but it is fair. Every time you die, you know exactly why. It's because you got greedy or you didn't see the one guard on the balcony. Desperados 3 is a masterpiece that proves this genre is alive and well. It is a must-play. Night in the Woods. So here's the deal. You play as May, this college dropout cat. Yeah, everyone's an animal, but they talk and act like real people. May comes back to her small hometown called Possum Springs, and everything feels weird. Like stuff's changed, but also kind of stayed the same. It's that weird small town energy where nothing ever really moves forward. You walk around, talk to your old friends, hang out, kill time, but there's this low-key sadness to it all. May's not okay and she knows it, but she's not sure what to do. Her friends are all dealing with their own stuff too. One's stuck in a dead-end job, one's taking care of his family after his mom died, another's trying to be tough, but you can tell she's barely holding it together. Even the town itself feels alive. You just wander around, climb rooftops, explore weird little places, see the same people going about their boring lives, and somehow, it all matters. The way they build the world is so chill, but so rich at the same time. Like every corner has a little story hiding there. It doesn't tell you everything straight up either, you kind of piece it together, and that makes it feel more personal, like you're figuring it out on your own. And yeah, there's a mystery going on too, like weird stuff starts happening, people going missing, strange figures in the woods, but honestly even that part kind of takes a backseat to just living. That's what the game's about, really. Just being alive and trying to make sense of it. Sometimes that's scary, sometimes it's boring, sometimes it's kind of funny. It's hard to explain, but Night in the Woods feels like hanging out inside someone's head. A little messy and kind of dark. So honestly, I really recommend you guys to check this game out for yourself. It's one of the most unique games out there. Oxenfree.
Getting to know somebody new.
Yeah, fun. An excuse to hit
You
run.
play as Alex, a teenage girl heading to an old military island with some friends for a night of partying. Sounds harmless, right? But then you tune into some strange radio frequencies and things start to get messed up. Time loops, ghost signals, creepy voices. It turns from a hangout into this full-on supernatural mind trip. What makes Oxenfree really shine is how natural the dialogue feels. The way the characters talk sounds like actual teens, not forced or cheesy. They joke, argue, cut each other off. It's all super fluid and real. You're not just picking lines from a list either. You walk around and talk at the same time, so it flows like a real conversation. No stiff pauses, no weird waiting, just people talking while spooky stuff's happening in the background. The gameplay isn't about fighting or puzzles, it's about exploring, choosing what to say, and slowly uncovering this freaky hidden story behind the island. Your choices actually matter too. Relationships shift, people remember things differently, and you can get a bunch of different endings depending on how you handle stuff. It's subtle, but it hits emotionally, especially if you play through more than once.
To stations that don't exist. Oh my god.
Firewatch.
Maybe I'm...
You play as Henry. His life's kind of fallen apart, so he takes a job watching for fires in a big forest in Wyoming. He's up in this little tower all summer, no real contact with anyone except for a woman named Delilah. She talks to him through a walkie-talkie. That's it, no face-to-face stuff, just voices. But those chats, they feel real. Funny sometimes, other times really heavy. The way they talk feels natural, like you're just listening to two people get to know each other, mess up, connect, drift apart, or maybe not. You choose how Henry responds, and that shapes how close they get. The forest itself looks beautiful, not in a fancy way, more like a painting. Colors shift with time of day. You'll see pink skies, orange trees, soft shadows. It's peaceful, but also a little lonely. You're just walking around, checking things out, doing small tasks. And weird stuff starts happening. You find notes, locked doors. Maybe someone's watching you. It never gets full horror or anything, but it adds a quiet tension. It keeps you thinking. But really, the mystery isn't the main thing. It's more about what's going on inside Henry's head. What he's running from. What he's not saying out loud. A whole game takes maybe 4 or 5 hours. And when it ends, you'll probably sit there thinking for a while. Not cause of some twist, just cause it makes you feel something. Regret, maybe. Or just the weirdness of being alone. If you like calm games that still leave a mark, this one's worth it. It doesn't waste your time, it just gives you space to feel something.
People take this job to get away from something. So what's wrong?
Everything's fine, just getting some fresh air.